One informal assessment method that I have used with students, this was specifically kindergarten, was observational. We had a lesson the other day where we read a read aloud about beavers. The students were, after reading the story about beavers, were sent back to their tables to write one sentence that they learned about beavers and draw a picture. So the goal was, can students, uh, after reading aloud a story about beavers, pull one detail about beavers and write it in a sentence or draw a picture? It was a little bit bumpy if they could do the sentence, but could they do at least a picture in some cases, depending on their level? The goal was, can they listen to the story and pull out a detail? The learning environment was in kindergarten. The students' characters that influence the choice of assessments. Observational, because it's kind of hard to do any of the others that I've learned about looking through the slides, because they cannot read as well at this level. So it's a lot of the assessments I've seen so far are more observational than anything else, except maybe for iReady reading. Okay, so was that an effective way to gather information about students' progress towards the learning goal? I think it was, as best you can in a kindergarten setting, because how else are you going to pull details from the kindergartners? You can do a lot of one-on-one, and that's been done, but in a group setting, how can you pull details? Can they listen to the story about beavers, and can they pull one detail and do maybe a simple sentence? Was this method easy to implement and did it generate concrete data? It wasn't as easy to implement because there was about 21 kindergartners, and you had to go to each one, and then we also did write down what they were thinking about. So some of the sentences, some of the thoughts didn't get transferred as well, but they did know a detail about the beaver. So in some cases, we wrote down a simple sentence the teachers were writing. So when you looked at the data, you could go, okay, did this student pull a detail out? But that took a lot of doing to try to go to 21 kids and see how they're doing. Some were great. Some you could read the sentence and they were done, and they got it done lickety split. But others, it took a little prompting to keep going. It was in them, but it took a little more prompting to get them to put down a detail. Did that method fit the setting and instructional activity? I think it did, because it's hard to do any of the other methods at this point because it's early in their learning career. So that did work because you have to observe and try to get details somehow that can you show that they're learning and they can do certain things, because it's hard to tell, because you can't do a whole bunch of worksheets because they have trouble reading at this point. How might you modify the assessment to improve how it monitors individual student progress towards a learning goal? I don't know how much you could change it to look at the student progress towards the learning goal, unless you did more one-on-one. At kindergarten, it's hard to nail that down. How could you incorporate self-monitoring of the learning goal? Be explicit. Well, you could ask the students, what details did you learn? That's what we're trying to incorporate the self-monitoring, because they have to answer back. Name another method of informal assessment that might work better in the future. Well, my idea is similar to math, where you would do a little quiz, but the questions would be read to them, but then they'd have to pick, now, is it picture A, B, or C? So they had to ring or circle the right answer, say, for example, of a question of where a beaver lives. So that's a way they could get ready, and that would be a quiz, and that would be a different way to get an informal assessment.